you'd probably assume the largest single organism on Earth is, well, something you can easily see.
Right, like a blue whale or something.
Yeah, exactly, a blue whale. Or maybe one of those towering redwood trees in California.
Sure, that makes sense.
But based on the research we're going through for this deep dive, the largest known single organism by area is actually hiding underground in Oregon's Madler National Forest.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It covers over 2,000 acres. And, the craziest part, it is not a plant. And it is not an animal.
Far from it.
It's a honey fungus, specifically Armillaria astoye, a single genetic individual that has literally been quietly growing beneath the soil for thousands of years.
Which completely shatters our basic intuition of what a living creature even is, right?
It really does.
I mean, we expect organisms to have a distinct body with clear boundaries, but this honey fungus is just a vast subterranean network quietly eating the forest from the inside out.
And that right there is our mission for this deep dive. We are tearing down everything you think you know about the fungal kingdom.
Yes, we are.
Looking through this stack of microbiology research, we're going to figure out what makes fungi so utterly alien, how their unique biology allows them to cause disease, and why they've suddenly, shot right to the top of the global public health agenda.
And as we synthesize these sources today, we really need to focus heavily on the why.
Right.
Because once you grasp the underlying mechanics of a fungus, how it actually operates on a cellular and chemical level, all of its seemingly bizarre behaviors make terrifyingly logical sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether it's hijacking an insect's nervous system or shrugging off modern medicine, it all comes back to a few core biological principles.
So let's start with how fundamentally misunderstood those principles were for, well, most of scientific history.
Oh, it was a mess.
Yeah. To understand what fungi are doing today, we have to look at how science got them completely wrong for centuries. Starting with Carl Linnaeus in his 1753 work Species Plantarum, the scientific community just lumped fungi in with plants.
Just threw them in the same box.
For 200 years. And, I get it on a superficial level.
Right.
You sit in the dirt, they don't move around, they don't have obvious mouths.
Right. Visually, the categorization was an easy trap to fall into, though there were pioneers trying to set the record straight early on.
Like Micheli.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In 1729, the Italian botanist Pier Antonio Mitelli, who's basically the founder of modern mycology, he published work describing fungal spores.
Which was huge.
It was. He experimentally proved that fungi actually grow from these microscopic spores.
And that was a massive intellectual leap at the time.
Yeah.
Because back then, the prevailing wisdom was spontaneous generation, right?
It does.
The idea that a mushroom just magically materialized out of a rotting log.
Exactly. Micheli proved they were reproducing biological entities, not just weird atmospheric anomalies.
Right.
And later you had Elias Magnus Fries in the 19th century structuring the taxonomy of mushrooms, earning him the title of the Linnaeus of mycology.
But the decisive break, the actual moment, fungi were finally liberated from the plant kingdom. That didn't happen until 1969.
Surprisingly recent, yeah.
Very recent. The American ecologist Robert Whitaker published a landmark paper in Science proposing a 5-kingdom system. And he finally carved fungi out as their own distinct kingdom.
Which was crucial. He recognized that organizing life just by what is rooted in the ground was masking some profound biochemical realities.
Okay, let's unpack those biochemical realities, because this is where the research completely blew my mind.
Let's do it.
Fungi have absolutely zero relation to plants. They don't have chlorophyll. They cannot photosynthesize.
Not at all.
And their cell walls aren't made of cellulose like a plant. They're built from chitin, which is the exact same ultra-tough material found in an insect's exoskeleton.
Yeah, that's a wild fact.
And their energy storage molecule is glycogen, which is what animals use.
Right, and the advent of molecular phylogenetics is what really put the final nail in the coffin of that whole plant theory.
How so?
Well, by analyzing DNA sequences, instead of just looking at physical traits, geneticists mapped out the evolutionary tree. Fungi and animals actually share a distinct common ancestor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they belong to a supergroup called Opisthokonta. Both of our lineages diverged from plants roughly 1 billion years earlier.
Wait, so genetically speaking, you listening to this right now are a closer cousin to the portobello sitting in your refrigerator than that mushroom is to a rose bush.
That is exactly right. It is a remarkable paradigm shift. The definition of a fungus went from a weird plant to a distinct kingdom. to our nutritionally strange sibling kingdom.
But that shared lineage raises a huge question. Since they can't make their own food from the sun,
Hmm.
and they share this ancient, animal-like heritage with us,
Right.
but they don't have mouths or stomachs, how are they surviving?
That is the big question.
This brings us to their core biology, and they
Yeah.
basically swallow themselves into their food.
Yeah, the biological mechanism is called absorptive heterotrophy. So, animals ingest food and use a stomach to digest it internally. Right, we swallow things.
Exactly. Fungi evolved the exact opposite approach. The vast majority grow as a network of microscopic thread-like filaments called hyphae.
Okay.
And that massive tangled network is the mycelium.
Hmm.
The mushroom you see above ground is just a temporary reproductive structure to launch spores. The actual organism is the mycelial network.
Wait, so how does a microscopic thread eat a whole tree?
Well, because they lack a gut, the mycelium secretes highly corrosive digestive enzymes outward, directly into the environment.
Okay.
These enzymes chemically cleave complex, rigid materials like the lignin and cellulose in dead wood into small, simple molecules.
Wow.
The fungal hyphae then absorb those nutrient molecules right through their cell membranes.
Which makes them the premier decomposers on Earth. I mean, they break down structural polymers that almost nothing else on the planet can digest.
Exactly.
But the terrifying part of the research is that a fungus doesn't necessarily know the difference between a dead log and a living host. The exact same enzymatic toolkit used to melt a fallen tree can be used to melt living tissue. And this brings us to one of the most incredible examples of invasive growth in all of biology, Ophiocordyceps unilateralis.
The zombie ant fungus.
That's the one.
I mean, everyone knows it from pop culture, like The Last of Us. But the reality in the jungle is somehow even stranger.
Oh, really is.
Tell us how the mechanism actually works, because it's not just eating the ant, it is actively puppeteering it.
Right. So research spearheaded by scientists like David Hughes reveals a horrifying level of precision.
Right.
The fungus infects a carpenter ant, and the hyphae proliferates inside the ant's body, absorbing nutrients.
Okay.
But it doesn't kill the host immediately. Instead, it chemically manipulates the ant's behavior.
This is the crazy part.
It forces the insect to leave its colony, climb up a specific plant to a highly specific height above the forest floor, and clamp its jaws onto a leaf vein in a permanent death grip.
Wait, I need to challenge this a bit. Is the fungus actually steering the ant's brain like a tiny pilot? Or is something else happening?
See, that is the most unsettling part. The fungus largely preserves the ant's brain.
You're kidding.
No, it physically weaves its hyphal threads through the ant's muscle fibers. It surrounds the muscles and secretes chemical signaling molecules that force the jaw muscles to contract and lock.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it is a localized chemical takeover. Once the ant is locked in place at the perfect height and humidity for spore dispersal, the fungus consumes the remaining tissue, sprouts a fruiting body out of the back of the ant's head, and rains spores down on the colony below.
It's an organism with no brain, no central nervous system, executing precise behavioral manipulation of a complex insect, purely through invasive growth and chemical signaling.
It is pure chemical warfare, a masterpiece of evolutionary biochemistry.
Which shifts us directly into human medicine. Because, we love that fungal chemical warfare when it benefits us, but it's a completely different story when it happens inside our lungs.
Absolutely.
Let's look at the penicillin paradox.
Right. So in 1928, Alexander Fleming famously discovered penicillin. But the context here is everything.
Right. How did he actually find it?
He observed a mold, Penicillium notatum, contaminating a petri dish and actively destroying the bacteria around it. What he was witnessing was a fungus defending its territory in the soil by secreting an antibiotic compound.
And we harnessed that turf war to make antibiotics and save millions of human lives.
Exactly.
But fighting a fungal infection inside a human body, that's where our shared evolutionary lineage becomes a massive liability.
It's a huge problem.
If fungi are eukaryotic, meaning their cellular machinery is incredibly similar to ours, fighting a fungal pathogen is like trying to poison a burglar who shares your exact same DNA.
That is the central practical hurdle in medical mycology. Bacterial cells are vastly different from human cells.
Right.
They have completely different structures, which means we can design dozens of classes of antibiotics that tear apart bacterial walls without scratching a human cell.
But not with fungi.
No, because a fungus shares our DNA replication machinery, our ribosomes, and our metabolic pathways.
You can't hit them without hitting yourself.
Yeah.
So what is the target?
Well, we have to hunt for the very narrow biochemical differences. We mentioned earlier that their cell walls contain chitin, so that is one target.
Okay, what else?
Another target is the cell membrane. Human membranes rely on cholesterol to maintain their structure, but fungi use a slightly different lipid called ergosterol.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, most of our frontline antifungal drugs are designed to hunt down ergosterol. But because the biochemical gulf between us is so small, the compounds that poison a fungus almost always carry a high risk of toxicity to human organs.
Like the liver and kidneys, right?
Particularly the liver and kidneys, yes.
And this leads to a massive misconception that the sources explicitly warn about. People get a fungal infection like a yeast overgrowth, and their first instinct is, I need an antibiotic.
Which is the worst thing you can do.
Taking antibacterial antibiotics for a fungal infection isn't just useless, it is actively fueling the fire.
Because antibiotics target bacterial-specific architecture, which fungi simply do not possess. The drug passes right over the fungus.
But it doesn't pass over your microbiome.
Exactly.
It carpet bombs all the beneficial bacteria in your body. And suddenly, fungi, like Candida, which might just be hanging out harmlessly in low numbers, realize all their bacterial competitors are dead.
The real estate is totally open.
Yeah, and they multiply out of control.
But this raises an important question, actually, a real paradox. If fungi have these devastating, tissue-melting chemical toolkits, and we have very few safe drugs to fight them, why aren't we constantly succumbing to lethal fungal plagues?
Right. If they can eat a massive oak tree, why aren't they eating us on a daily basis?
The primary shield is our body temperature. Mammalian body heat is simply too high for the vast majority of environmental fungi to survive.
So our fevers and basal temp protect us.
Exactly. Furthermore, unlike a virus like rabies, which evolved specifically to hijack animal cells to replicate, disease-causing fungi aren't looking for us.
They're accidental assassins.
Right. Most human fungal diseases, known as mycoses, are opportunistic. The human body is a hostile, dead-end environment for them.
They just stumble in through a breath of air and realize, well, it's warm and there's nutrients, I'll try to survive.
Exactly. A perfect case study for this is Cryptococcus neoformans.
What's the story with that one?
In nature, it thrives in soil enriched by bird droppings. We inhale its spores regularly. If you have a healthy immune system, your body clears it out without you ever knowing.
Okay, but what if you don't?
Well, if the immune system is compromised, the fungus grows unchecked. This became glaringly, tragically apparent during the HIV/AIDS epidemic in the 1980s and 90s, before widespread antiretroviral therapy.
That makes sense.
In those patients, the fungus migrated to the brain, causing lethal cryptococcal meningitis.
Because the immune cells simply weren't there to hold the line against that invasive growth.
Exactly. Fungal disease surges whenever medical or social conditions create populations with suppressed defenses. We see it today with transplant recipients on immunosuppressants, cancer patients undergoing chemotherapy, and critical care patients in the ICU.
And the landscape in those ICUs is getting substantially darker. Here's where it gets really interesting. The research highlights a specific pathogen, Candida auris.
Yes.
This blew my mind. It was literally only first identified in 2009 in patient's ear canal in Japan.
Yeah.
Auris being Latin for ear.
Right.
And in just over a decade, it has become a global hospital superbug.
Candida auris is a nightmare scenario for infectious disease specialists, primarily because it is multi-drug resistant.
Oh.
It frequently utilizes molecular pumps to flush our already rare antifungal drugs right out of its cells.
Just pumps them right out.
Yep. Second, unlike most fungi that require damp soil to survive, Candida auris has evolved to withstand desiccation.
Meaning it can dry out.
Exactly. It forms tough biofilms and survives on sterile hospital surfaces, bed rails, and medical equipment for weeks.
Wait, I have to ask, if it was only discovered in 2009, how does an organism evolve multi-drug resistance and biofilm surface survival so incredibly fast?
Well, the leading scientific hypothesis points to massive environmental selective pressure. We use thousands of tons of agricultural fungicides, specifically a class called azoles, on our crops.
Ah, I see where this is going.
Right, this saturates the soil, forcing environmental fungi to rapidly evolve resistance just to survive. When a strain like Candida auris eventually adapts to human body temperatures and enters a hospital, it arrives already armed with resistance to the very drugs we rely on to save patients.
Which has forced a massive reckoning in public health. I mean, for decades, medical mycology was treated like a neglected stepchild in research funding.
It really was.
People thought of fungal infections as cosmetic. Athlete's foot, ringworm, which, just to clear the record, has absolutely nothing to do with worms.
No worms involved.
Right. Ringworm is caused by dermatophyte fungi eating the keratin in your skin. But because of those superficial infections, systemic mycoses, the ones infiltrating the bloodstream, they just didn't get the urgency of bacterial or viral research.
But the calculus has definitively shifted now. Driven by this surge in antifungal resistance and the growing population of vulnerable patients, the World Health Organization took unprecedented action.
In 2022, right?
Yes, in 2022, they published their first ever list of priority fungal pathogens. It was a formal global mandate acknowledging that systemic fungal infections are an urgent, deadly public health threat.
So hospitals are on high alert. But the fungal threat extends far beyond the ICU. Fungi are actively reshaping global agriculture, wildlife, and even how we classify life itself.
Absolutely.
But to understand the agricultural threat, we actually have to look at a famous scientific failure from the sources, the Irish potato famine of the 1840s.
It is the ultimate cautionary tale in taxonomy. The famine caused roughly 1 million deaths and forced mass emigration.
Devastating.
And for well over a century, science confidently blamed a fungal blight, and, you can see why.
Because it looked like a fungus.
Exactly. The organism, Phytophthora infestans, grows in filamentous threads. It secretes enzymes. It feeds through absorptive heterotrophy. 19th century botanists looked at it under a microscope and said, that is a fungus.
But we know now that looks in the microscopic world mean absolutely nothing.
When modern molecular biology arrived, geneticists finally sequenced its DNA. Phytophthora infestans is not a fungus.
What is it?
It belongs to a completely separate lineage called the Oomycetes, which are genetically related to brown algae and diatoms.
So it's essentially algae cosplaying as a fungus.
It is a textbook demonstration of convergent evolution. Two entirely unrelated lineages face similar environmental challenges needing to extract nutrients from tough organic matter and independently evolved the exact same filamentous absorptive lifestyle.
That's wild.
This historical blind spot is why modern microbiologists insist on genetic sequencing. Physical morphology is just too easily manipulated by evolution.
But even with the imposters filtered out, true fungi are causing enough ecological catastrophes on their own.
Oh, without a doubt.
The sources detail incredible agricultural stakes today. You have crop diseases like wheat rust and rice blast threatening the foundation of global food security.
Huge issues.
And a fungus called Fusarium oxysporum causes Panama disease, which is currently threatening to wipe out the Cavendish banana. And that is the dominant commercial banana worldwide.
Right, and a relative of this fungus already wiped out the previous commercial banana in the mid-20th century.
Yeah.
Evolution is just repeating itself.
The devastation in wildlife populations is equally severe.
Yes. Fungal pathogens are responsible for some of the most dramatic biodiversity collapses ever recorded. The chytrid fungus has been definitively linked to the massive decline and, in some cases, outright extinction of dozens of amphibian species globally.
Just wiping out frogs everywhere.
Yes, and in North America, a psychrophilic or cold-loving fungus causes white nose syndrome, which has killed millions of hibernating bats since it emerged around 2006.
It is staggering. And what is truly wild is how much we still don't know about the enemies and allies we are facing.
So much unknown.
I mean, we have formally cataloged about 150,000 species of fungi. But the current research suggests we are barely scratching the surface.
Yeah, the estimates of true fungal biodiversity vary wildly, but they generally range from 2 million to over 5 million species on Earth.
How do they even get that number if they haven't found them?
Scientists arrive at these numbers not by finding the actual mushrooms, but by taking environmental DNA samples, eDNA from soil cores and air filters, and extrapolating the sheer volume of unknown genetic signatures.
Which means we are surrounded by a vast, dark matter of unknown biology. The overwhelming majority of fungi on this planet are completely unknown to science.
It renders fungi one of the least cataloged major groups of complex eukaryotic life. Given their profound capabilities as both decomposers and pathogens, the scale of what we have yet to discover is both scientifically thrilling and deeply daunting.
So just to recap, we're looking at a deeply misunderstood kingdom, an ancient relative that digests the world from the outside in. It possesses terrifying chemical precision and exploits our biological similarities to evade medicine. And most of its human diseases are opportunistic, catching us when we're weak.
And as we saw with the potato famine, physical lookalikes prove we can't even trust our own eyes.
It really reframed how you look at a simple mushroom. But there's one final provocative thought from the sources I want you to mull over on your own.
Okay.
Because it's not all pathogens and rot. there's an entirely different side to their invasive growth. Mycorrhizang.
Ah, yes. It is an ancient mutualistic symbiosis.
How does that work?
Beneath the forest floor, fungal hyphae actively penetrate or surround the roots of plants. But instead of digesting the plant, they engage in a trade.
A trait.
Yes, the massive fungal network absorbs water and vital soil minerals like phosphorus, delivering them to the plant. In exchange, the plant pumps sugars created through photosynthesis down into the fungus.
And the research suggests this relationship is so ancient that without fungi acting as an extended root system, plants might never have successfully colonized dry land millions of years ago.
They needed each other.
Exactly. It creates what ecologist Suzanne Simard famously dubbed the Wood Wide Web. These subterranean fungal networks literally link separate trees together, allowing an entire forest to share resources and communicate chemical stress signals.
It's beautiful, really.
So think back to that 2,000-acre honey fungus we started with, quietly spanning beneath the Oregon soil. The next time you walk through the woods, remember that you aren't just looking at individual isolated trees, you are walking over a massive, interconnected biological internet, run entirely by the strange, invisible, outside-eating kingdom beneath your feet.
It fundamentally changes the definition of what a forest actually is.
It really does. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, and we'll catch you next time.